Hello everyone. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, and with specifics modified to protect my identity, I just need to get this off my chest. I'm Alex, 35 male, and for years, my family's narrative of me has been the artistic one. You know, the dreamer, the one who can't quite get it together, perpetually on the verge of a breakthrough that never comes. Meanwhile, my younger brother Mark, 32, was always the golden child, the business whiz, the one who effortlessly excelled at everything. This dynamic shaped my entire life, leading to a Thanksgiving reveal that still has my head spinning. Growing up in suburban Sacramento, California, our household was a tale of two sons, perpetually contrasting. Mark was the undisputed star. From the moment he could walk, he was a natural athlete, excelling at everything from Little League baseball to high school soccer, often leading his teams to state championships. His room was a shrine to his athletic prowess, overflowing with trophies and framed jerseys. Academically, he was just as brilliant, a straight-A student who effortlessly aced every test, always chosen for gifted programs and academic decathlons. He was the natural leader, consistently elected class president, team captain, or head of any school committee. My parents, bless their hearts, were his unwavering fan club. Every weekend was a flurry of activity centered around Mark, cheering him on at games, applauding at academic award ceremonies, and boasting about his every accomplishment to anyone who would listen, from distant relatives at holiday gatherings to the grocery store cashier, and even complete strangers on planes. They had a prominently displayed wall in our living room, a gleaming monument dedicated solely to Mark's ever-growing collection of trophies, ribbons, and framed certificates of achievement. It was a tangible testament to his perceived perfection. Me? I was usually in my room, a quiet sanctuary where I could truly be myself. I spent countless hours sketching fantastical creatures from my imagination, meticulously designing intricate sci-fi worlds, or, my true passion, tinkering with old electronics I'd scavenged from garage sales and forgotten dusty corners of the house. While Mark was out being lauded, I was dissecting, analyzing, and rebuilding, trying to understand the fundamental logic that made things work. My parents were present, I suppose, but their attention felt like a strictly limited resource, and every single drop was directed towards Mark. It was as if I existed in a perpetual soft focus, a blurry background character in the epic, brightly lit saga of Mark's life. I was always there, but rarely truly seen. I vividly recall a moment in 5th grade, a fleeting triumph that should have been a turning point, but was instead a stark reinforcement of my place. I had poured my heart and soul into a watercolor painting of a majestic redwood forest, capturing the intricate play of light and shadow, the grandeur of nature. It was selected from thousands of entries to be displayed at the state capitol building in Sacramento as part of a statewide art competition. I was bursting with pride, a rare feeling of accomplishment. I practically sprinted home from school to tell my parents, brimming with excitement, clutching the official letter of recognition. My dad, without looking up from the sports section of the newspaper, simply grunted, "That's nice, son. Did you finish your chores? Mark needs a ride to baseball practice in 15 minutes, and I'm not doing it." My mom, on the phone, coordinating Mark's elaborate schedule for the coming week, offered a distracted without truly registering what I'd said. The painting itself, a piece of my soul on canvas, was never even hung in our house. It ended up, still rolled in a dusty box in the garage, eventually forgotten amidst old tools and holiday decorations. But the participation ribbon Mark got for a science fair, where his project on the effects of sugar on earthworms resulted in a mild infestation in the garage and no actual scientific findings whatsoever, was prominently displayed on the fridge for months, complete with a "we're so proud of our little scientist" magnet, a testament to his effort, regardless of outcome. This pattern continued relentlessly through middle and high school, solidifying my identity as the other son. While Mark was busy preparing for Ivy League recruiting visits for his prodigious debating prowess, he could argue black was white if it meant winning, a skill my parents praised as persuasive. I was quietly building functional websites for local small businesses, teaching myself advanced coding languages and complex algorithms in my spare time. I'd spend countless hours in the public library, a haven of quiet discovery, devouring every book on advanced computer science, network infrastructure, and user interface design I could find. I devoured every line of code I could get my hands on, not for a grade, but out of pure, insatiable curiosity. When I showed my parents an early app I'd meticulously created for tracking local hiking trails, it even had a rudimentary GPS function that predated mainstream smartphone integration by years. They just offered polite nods and feigned interest. "That's a nice hobby, Alex," my mom said, her eyes already drifting towards the clock. "But have you thought about something more stable, like accounting?" Mark's business class seemed so practical, so secure. The unspoken message was always clear, a constant hum beneath the surface of family life. Mark was the future, the practical success story, the one who would carry on the family name with distinction, the heir to their aspirations. I was the charming but ultimately impractical distraction, the one whose creative pursuits were tolerated but never truly valued, deemed too risky or too niche to amount to anything substantial. It stung, deeply, a persistent ache in my chest. But that persistent, quiet dismissal also fueled me. If no one was going to pave my way, if no one was going to recognize my inherent worth or my efforts, then I would build my own path, in secret if necessary. I would prove my worth, not to them, not for their validation, but to myself, for my own satisfaction and sense of purpose. After high school, the chasm between Mark and me widened further. I decided to apply to UC Berkeley for computer science, a choice that was met with palpable disappointment. "Why not business like Mark?" my dad asked, his voice tinged with genuine pleading, as if my choice was a personal affront to his carefully constructed vision of family success. "You're so good with people, you could sell anything. Mark's going to Wharton, you know. He'll be set for life, with a clear path." I paid for my entire tuition, living expenses, and even my books with a combination of hard-won academic scholarships. I'd scored a perfect 1600 on the SATs, a fact that barely registered with them amidst Mark's latest debate trophies, and the substantial sum I'd meticulously saved from my years of freelance web development work. Every line of code I wrote, every website I designed, every late night I spent honing my skills was a brick in the foundation of my escape, a step towards true independence. Mark, Of course, received a full scholarship to Wharton, funded by a mysterious, seemingly endless family fund that I apparently wasn't privy to, despite being an actual member of the family. It was just another example of the unspoken rules that governed our lives. I worked relentlessly in college, pushing myself far beyond the curriculum. During the day, I was buried in complex algorithms, debugging endless lines of code, and enduring grueling late-night coding sessions, often fueled by lukewarm coffee from the campus shop. I consistently made the dean's list, graduating with highest honors, constantly pushing the boundaries of my knowledge in theoretical and applied computer science. In the evenings, however, when I called home, I deliberately cultivated my struggling artist image for my family. I'd wear worn-out t-shirts and strategically paint-splattered jeans, even though the paint was often just acrylics I'd dabbed on myself for effect. I'd talk vaguely about my abstract painting projects, my experimental soundscapes, or my performance art pieces, and mention creative endeavors when asked about my career plans. This was partly self-preservation, a meticulously crafted shield designed to deflect their well-meaning but often condescending advice about getting a real job, settling down, or being more like Mark. But deep down, it was also a way to protect myself. If they thought I was already failing, or at least floundering creatively, then their inevitable disappointment couldn't hurt me as much when I didn't live up to Mark's impossible standards of corporate success. I became an expert at diverting conversations, steering them away from my genuine academic achievements and burgeoning tech skills and towards my latest fabricated artistic crisis or creative block. After graduating with honors from Berkeley, I moved to a modest one-bedroom apartment in a vibrant but gritty neighborhood in Oakland. The rent was cheap, and it allowed me to funnel every spare cent into my true passion. While my parents assumed I was spending my days painting canvases, waiting tables to make ends meet, and perpetually seeking my big break in the highly competitive San Francisco art scene, I was actually working on something revolutionary in the tech world. I'd identified a massive, unmet need in the market: secure, user-friendly data encryption for small and medium-sized businesses. Existing solutions were either astronomically expensive, prohibitively complex, or laughably unreliable. It was a niche, but one with huge, untapped potential for disruption. I spent long nights, fueled by copious amounts of instant coffee and, yes, literally ramen noodles, which, ironically, my parents assumed was all I could afford and often offered to send me care packages of more, meticulously coding what would become Aegis Guard. My apartment, far from an artist's studio, looked more like a mad scientist's lab, with multiple monitors stacked on wobbly boxes, wires snaking across every available surface, and the faint hum of overworked servers. The early days of Aegis Guard were a blur of intense work, exhilarating breakthroughs, and terrifying financial tightropes. I poured every penny of my savings into it, maxing out credit cards and working out of my tiny apartment. The building constantly smelled like stale pizza from the downstairs restaurant and a vague sense of existential dread that only a startup founder can truly appreciate. My office furniture consisted of a rickety desk I'd salvaged from a thrift store and a surprisingly comfortable, ergonomically sound office chair I literally found on the street, fully sanitized and disinfected, of course, before it entered my sacred workspace. I spent countless hours debugging lines of code, refining the user interface, and rigorously testing every single feature. Sleep was a luxury I rarely afforded myself. But the demand for robust, accessible cybersecurity was growing exponentially. It wasn't just a niche, it was a burgeoning necessity. Our unique selling proposition was simple yet powerful. We offered military-grade, state-of-the-art encryption with an interface so intuitive and user-friendly, even non-tech-savvy business owners could protect their most sensitive data with just a few clicks. We built every aspect of Aegis Guard from the ground up, prioritizing privacy, lightning-fast performance, and unparalleled ease of use. Word of mouth spread like wildfire within the tech community, and among small business owners who were desperate for reliable solutions. What started as local small businesses turning to us quickly grew into medium-sized enterprises, then major corporations, and even sensitive government contractors seeking our impenetrable services. Within 2 years, Aegis Guard was no longer a nascent startup. It was a serious, recognized player in the cybersecurity market, lauded for its innovation, reliability, and unparalleled customer support. My first hire was a stroke of genius, a brilliant young cryptographer named Lena, a recent graduate from Stanford. She was equally overlooked in the male-dominated tech industry because she was too quiet, lacked the aggressive personality often associated with tech success, and preferred deep technical work over self-promotion. She reminded me so much of my younger self, and I saw her untapped potential instantly. She's now my chief technology officer and a truly invaluable asset worth her weight in gold, silver, and platinum combined. We expanded rapidly, outgrowing my pizza-scented apartment and moving into a sleek, multi-floor office space in downtown San Francisco, boasting panoramic views of the Bay. The contrast with my earlier life was stark, but my struggling artist cover remained firmly in place for my family, a meticulously maintained illusion. I established a strong reputation for discretion in the industry, which appealed immensely to many high-profile clients who wanted their data secured without drawing public attention to their vulnerabilities. Our client list became a closely guarded secret, a veritable who's who of Silicon Valley giants, international conglomerates, and even sensitive government agencies. My bank account swelled, quietly, dramatically, almost unbelievably. I bought a beautiful, understated modern house in Marin County, nestled among the ancient redwoods with breathtaking, unobstructed views of the Golden Gate Bridge and the Bay. It was luxurious, yes, but not ostentatious. No flashy signs of wealth for the outside world to see, no sprawling estate, just elegant design and quiet comfort. I drove a high-end, but not overtly luxurious, all-electric Tesla Model S, chosen for its understated elegance and environmental consciousness, not its price tag. The only place I truly splurged was on cutting-edge technology for my home office, a custom-built, climate-controlled server room that made Fort Knox look like a garden shed, equipped with the latest quantum-resistant encryption hardware and biometric security. My daily life was a stark, almost absurd contrast to the carefully crafted image I presented to my family. An image of an artist barely making ends meet, relying on instant coffee and the fickle whims of creative muses. Sunday dinners at my parents' house in Sacramento became an elaborate, increasingly exhausting exercise in cognitive dissonance for me. I'd arrive in carefully chosen casual clothes, a well-worn, faded t-shirt and jeans, hiding a custom-tailored Italian suit by Brioni in my car trunk, just in case a late-night flight to an international client meeting in Tokyo or London materialized. I always made sure to arrive a little late, a little disheveled, to reinforce the struggling artist aesthetic. "Still painting, Alex? Any big commissions coming in?" my mom would ask, pouring me a glass of the cheapest supermarket wine, her tone a mixture of polite interest and thinly veiled pity. Meanwhile, Mark, ever the dutiful and self-congratulatory son, would relentlessly boast about his latest promotion at his prestigious investment banking firm, detailing his rising stock options, his important client lunches at exclusive San Francisco restaurants, and his increasingly lavish vacations. He had recently moved into a swanky new apartment in the Marina District. A sprawling penthouse, funded, of course, by his brilliant financial decisions and a substantial loan from our parents that had mysteriously materialized from their savings. "Yeah, just plugging away, the muse is a fickle mistress," I'd reply, nonchalantly, trying to sound a little tired, a little defeated, a little perpetually on the verge of a breakthrough that never quite materialized. All the while, my mental calendar was crammed with upcoming meetings with Fortune 500 CEOs, high-level government defense contractors, and representatives from major European banks, deals that literally moved billions of dollars. Mark, ever the helpful older brother figure, despite being younger, would often offer unsolicited career advice. "Alex, you should really try selling your art at local farmers markets or street fairs. It's all about networking and getting your name out there. I could even help you with some basic marketing strategies, maybe build a simple website for you, something on a free platform like Wix." This from the guy whose biggest creative endeavor was selecting a new font for his corporate presentations, or arranging his golf trophies by size and material. I just smile and nod, occasionally wincing inwardly. All the while, I'd be wearing a limited edition Patek Philippe watch, a rare collector's piece that cost more than his entire luxury car, which no one ever noticed or recognized. The irony was exquisite, a silent, personal joke I played with myself every single Sunday, a small rebellion in plain sight. The charade extended beyond myself. I even started making anonymous monthly transfers to my parents' bank account when my Aunt Carol, my mom's younger sister and my only true confidant in the family, quietly informed me that they were struggling immensely with their mortgage. It turned out Mark, in his relentless pursuit of the ultimate bachelor pad, had convinced them to co-sign a substantial, unsecured loan for his luxury condo in the city, which had stretched their finances to the absolute breaking point. I started with a discreet transfer of $10,000 a month, sending it from a shell corporation I'd set up for exactly this purpose, a financial ghost. When asked by my parents where the extra money was coming from, I concocted a believable story about a small inheritance from a distant, long-lost relative whose existence was entirely fabricated. Of course, Mark eventually, and without any prompting, took credit for motivating our parents to look into better financial planning, proudly declaring that his success was finally rubbing off on them, and that his very presence was somehow inspiring wealth and prosperity in the family. It was almost comical how easily they accepted this narrative. Then came Mark's self-proclaimed big break, the event that truly set the stage for the inevitable confrontation. He announced, with a grand flourish and a self-important speech at one Sunday dinner, that he was leaving his prestigious investment banking job to start his own venture capital firm, focusing exclusively on cutting-edge tech startups. My parents were beyond ecstatic, practically falling over themselves with pride, envisioning Mark as the next Silicon Valley titan. "He's going to be a millionaire, easily, a real visionary," my mom gushed, her eyes sparkling with dreams of early retirement and a life of luxury. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to them, Aegis Guard had just closed a Series C funding round that valued the company at over $200 million, making me, quietly, definitively, a multi-millionaire several times over. The contrast between their inflated hopes for Mark and the quiet reality of my own success was becoming almost unbearable. The final straw, the tiny crack that would eventually shatter the entire meticulously maintained facade, came when Mark announced with a dramatic flourish that he needed a substantial seed investment for his new firm. He spoke grandly about investor confidence, proving market viability, and disrupting the industry. My parents, already stretched thin from helping with his condo loan and the general burden of keeping up with his increasingly expensive lifestyle, were desperately trying to figure out how to help him secure this massive sum. "Maybe you could loan him some money, Alex?" my dad suggested one evening, his voice hesitant, almost apologetic, as if he were asking me for spare change. "From your art sales. Even a small amount would help. It's for family." I just nodded, a bitter taste in my mouth, the weight of the secret in the charade becoming too heavy to bear. The time for truth was rapidly approaching. I knew the truth had to come out eventually. The weight of the secret was becoming unbearable, a suffocating blanket woven from years of pretense and quiet resentment. The constant charade was exhausting, draining me physically and emotionally. I just didn't expect it to explode quite so spectacularly, ruining Thanksgiving dinner for about 20 bewildered relatives, and solidifying my place as the family pariah, or hero, depending on your perspective. 2 weeks before the holiday, my mom called, distraught, her voice trembling. Mark's anticipated seed funding had fallen through at the absolute last minute, leaving him in an incredibly precarious financial position for his new venture. He needed a significant sum of money, quickly, to keep his nascent firm afloat and avoid defaulting on office leases and initial hires. My parents, in their unending, almost pathological devotion to Mark, were planning to take out a second mortgage on their house, their entire retirement nest egg, to cover it. This was their last resort, and it terrified me. "Mom," I said, my voice calmer than I felt, a strategic decision to project an air of nonchalant generosity, "why don't I handle the Thanksgiving dinner this year? I can cater it, and maybe we can talk about Mark's funding situation then. Just between us." I had a plan, a crazy, risky, utterly dramatic plan, but I was done with the charade, done with being the invisible sun, done with enabling their favoritism. I arranged for a high-end catering firm, the very same one I used for Aegis Guard's quarterly investor meetings, known for their Michelin star level cuisine and impeccable service, to prepare the entire Thanksgiving feast. It wasn't cheap. It cost more than my parents earned in 6 months combined, but it was worth it for the quiet satisfaction of seeing their faces light up as they enjoyed genuinely gourmet food they would never normally taste, thinking I had just splurged a little on catering. Thanksgiving morning arrived, bright and crisp in Sacramento. The house was soon filled with the delicious, sophisticated aroma of perfectly roasted heritage turkey, truffle mashed potatoes, artisanal stuffing, and delicate pumpkin tarts. My aunts, uncles, and cousins began to arrive, filling the house with boisterous chatter and festive energy. Mark, of course, ever the self-appointed culinary critic, immediately found something to criticize about the food, despite its obvious quality. Store-bought cranberry sauce, Alex? Really? Mom's is so much better. Homemade, you know. This tastes like it came from a can. This from the guy who once set off the smoke alarm trying to boil water for instant ramen. My mom, of course, apologized profusely to everyone, explaining that she wasn't feeling up to cooking this year. But you could tell by their subtly changed expressions and rapid consumption that everyone was enjoying the gourmet meal, even Mark. He did, however, shut up after tasting the maple-glazed Brussels sprouts with candied bacon, which, by the way, cost more per plate than his weekly grocery budget. The irony was a delicious appetizer for what was to come. During dessert, a delicate pumpkin mousse with cinnamon creme anglaise and candied pecans, I excused myself to take a very important call related to my art projects. In reality, I had a crucial online auction for a new data center contract in Singapore that was about to close, a multi-million-dollar deal that would solidify our presence in Asia. I went to my old bedroom, which, unlike Mark's meticulously updated and redecorated childhood room, complete with a home gym and a 70-inch TV, looked exactly as I'd left it years ago. A relic of my struggling artist past, complete with an easel holding an unfinished and intentionally terrible abstract painting and scattered art supplies. That's when everything went horribly, spectacularly wrong. I had left my laptop open on the desk, displaying my Aegis Guard dashboard, a live feed of our company's meticulously detailed financial data, pending contracts, and, critically, my current net worth, prominently displayed at the top in large, bold numbers. Mark, ever the snooping, entitled younger brother, walked in without knocking, ostensibly to borrow my phone charger, a flimsy, transparent excuse. His eyes immediately locked onto the laptop screen. I saw the predatory gleam, the calculating look of a man who thought he'd just discovered a dirty secret. He paused, his eyes widening as he registered the numbers, then his lips curled into a smug, superior grin as he believed he'd finally found irrefutable proof of how pathetic his older brother really was. "Let's see what kind of art Alex is really working on," he sneered, his voice dripping with condescension as he grabbed my laptop. He strode into the crowded dining room, holding the laptop aloft like a trophy, ready to humble me in front of the entire assembled family. Picture this. 20 people, aunts, uncles, cousins, and my parents, all stuffed with gourmet turkey, half drunk on expensive wine they genuinely believed was a budget blend from Trader Joe's, their faces flushed with good cheer. Mark, with a dramatic, triumphant flourish, flipped the laptop around, intending to disgrace me with whatever minor art sales ledger or half-finished painting he assumed I was working on. The room went completely silent. The festive chatter died instantly. You could literally hear the antique grandfather clock, a beautiful Gustav Stickley piece that I had bought my mom for Christmas, and which she, of course, proudly displayed, convinced it was a cheap reproduction from a discount store, ticking loudly in the sudden stillness. My laptop screen in stark digital clarity, with numbers almost glowing, prominently displayed, Aegis Guard Inc. Global Cybersecurity and Data Encryption Solutions, protecting your digital world discreetly and securely. Company valuation, $215,000 US successful Series C funding round, Q2 2025. Alex Thorne, CEO and founder, personal net worth, $127,850 USD EASY, current liquid assets and equity holdings. Pending contracts Q4 forecast, $18,500 USD, confirmed deals, excluding Singapore auction result. Recent notable transaction, $4,200,000 USD, government data center security contract Q3 2025. Projected annual revenue, $85,000 USD. Mark's face cycled through 5 distinct emotions in less than a second. Initial confusion, then wide-eyed disbelief, followed by dawning horror, pure, unadulterated envy, and finally a sort of nauseous, bile-filled shock. His jaw dropped so far I thought it might hit the floor. He actually stumbled backward, bumping clumsily into the dining table, nearly sending a platter of artisanal cheese and a priceless Murano glass vase flying. He looked utterly bewildered, as if he'd seen a ghost, or perhaps a winning lottery ticket that wasn't his. He just stood there, swaying slightly. This can't be right," he stammered, his voice thin, barely a whisper, hoarse with shock. She's rich. Alex is rich, a millionaire." My mom, initially confused by Mark's dramatic outburst and strange reaction, began to giggle, a nervous, high-pitched, almost hysterical sound. "Don't be silly, Mark. Alex works at that little art studio. He's just a struggling artist. He helps us out when he can." I calmly rose from my chair, taking my time, straightening the sleeve of my custom-made cashmere sweater, which, of course, they still believed was from a Target discount rack despite its obvious quality and fit. My voice was steady, clear, projecting across the silent, stunned room, each word resonating with years of suppressed truth. "Yes, Mom. Actually, I own Aegis Guard. We're one of the leading cybersecurity and data encryption firms in the country. For years, all those art projects you never asked about, the hobbies you dismissed, the struggling you pitied, and they were actually the foundation of building a multi-million-dollar tech company. It has major offices in San Francisco, New York, and now Singapore, with clients spanning the globe from Silicon Valley to the Pentagon, and that little studio is actually a global enterprise." My dad, who had been sipping his expensive wine, thinking it was cheap, promptly choked, yet coughing violently, his face turning an alarming shade of red. Aunt Carol, God bless her, dropped her fork with a loud clatter onto her untouched dessert plate. Uncle David, normally the most stoic and unflappable man in the family, started coughing uncontrollably, his eyes wide with shock. Then my mom's nervous giggling transformed into something else entirely. Her face flushed a dangerous shade of crimson, then deepened to a purplish hue, her eyes bulging with disbelief and growing anger. She stood up so quickly that her chair crashed to the floor behind her, unnoticed. "You have millions," she shrieked, her voice cracking with pure, unadulterated indignation. "You've been sitting on all that money and you let us struggle? Your brother needed funding for his firm. We were going to take out a second mortgage on our home, our retirement, to help him." "Struggle?" I shot back, my voice rising, years of suppressed anger, resentment, and a profound sense of injustice finally boiling to the surface. "You call that struggle? I've been sending you $10,000 every single month for the past 2 years, anonymously, from a fabricated inheritance. You think that inheritance was real? I've been propping you up, preventing foreclosure, while you praised Mark for his financial acumen and dismissed me as a dreamer. While sitting on millions, your brother has a new business, a family legacy. You owed us," she wailed, genuine tears now streaming down her face, tears not of sorrow or remorse, but of outrage, perceived betrayal, and a profound sense of injustice that I hadn't given them more money, that I hadn't made their lives easier while I supposedly struggled. Mark, having finally regained some semblance of composure, albeit a tear-streaked and snotty one, started to cry too, real, ugly, self-pitying tears. "You betrayed us. You owed me this. I'm the family's future. You should have invested in my company, Alex, not kept it all hidden." "Owe you?" I scoffed, the dam of my composure finally breaking completely. "Owe you for what exactly? For being ignored my entire life? For every award and achievement you missed because Mark might feel left out? For never saving a single penny for my college education but funding his entire Wharton education and now his failed business venture? For constantly putting me down, dismissing my ambitions, and treating me like a charming but useless burden? No, I gave myself everything. I built every single bit from scratch with no help or support from any of you. And you know what? I'm done. Done with the lies, done with the charade, done with you." The following 5 minutes were a chaotic, cacophonous blur of screaming, sobbing, and wild accusations. My mom screamed about family obligations and ungrateful children. My dad yelled about selfishness and disrespect. Mark alternated between loud, theatrical sobs and demanding to know just how much money I really had, as if I owed him a detailed financial report and an immediate distribution. Meanwhile, the fancy catering team, looking utterly mortified and trying their absolute best to become invisible, attempted to discreetly serve coffee and clean up scattered napkins, their professionalism tested to its absolute limits. I took a deep breath, savored the chaotic silence that briefly followed a particularly loud scream from my mother, then calmly gathered my laptop, picked up my Hermes briefcase, which my mom had previously commented on as being a nice replica, and walked out. As I stepped out the front door, I could distinctly hear my mom's voice, already chillingly, discussing how to spend my newly discovered fortune, something about Mark's new office, a luxury car for them, and a lavish family vacation to the Caribbean. As I drove home in my sensible, yet incredibly fast and expensive limited edition BMW i8, my phone started filling up with texts, a torrent of digital outrage. The family group chat exploded, a barrage of vitriol and accusations. My cousin, Rachel, Mark's closest ally, started posting passive-aggressive, thinly veiled messages on Facebook about hidden family wealth and selfish siblings. The days after that infamous Thanksgiving were like watching a cyclone hit in slow motion, except that the hurricane represented my family, and the debris symbolized my sanity, slowly being chipped away. Let's start with the SMS messaging. Within 1 hour of leaving dinner, my phone had 47 missed calls and over 200 messages, a relentless barrage. My mom's texts, in particular, followed a fascinating, escalating progression of emotional manipulation. "How dare you walk out on family? This is unforgivable, Alex. We raised you." 18 p.m. "We need to talk about this calmly, Alex. Like adults. You owe us an explanation. Your brother deserves a share of your success. He's been through so much. He needs this funding." 10 p.m. "I've already called a realtor about houses in better neighborhoods. We need something fitting for your status. You can buy us a mansion." 11:45 p.m. "Why aren't you answering? This is your mother. Call me immediately or I'm calling the police." Meanwhile, Mark had fully embraced his role as a social media martyr. He wrote an enormous, self-pitying rant on Facebook about how his millionaire brother had been hoarding wealth and deceiving the family, while watching his beloved struggling family endure hardship. He painted me as a greedy, malevolent villain who had intentionally hidden my success out of spite. The comment section was a cesspool of judgment. Distant cousins and old high school acquaintances whom I hadn't spoken to in years, people who knew nothing about my life, suddenly emerged as self-appointed moral authorities, expressing outrage and demanding I share the wealth. But this is the bit that truly grabbed me, the most infuriating lie. Mark actually posted all those years of me trying to help Alex's career, giving him advice about moving up from that little art studio, and he was secretly a millionaire. The betrayal hurt so much. The sheer audacity, the blatant, shameless rewriting of history, the fabrication of his supposed support hurt so much I nearly threw my phone across the room. The only career advice he ever gave me was to try selling your drawings on Etsy, Alex. It's a good side hustle for artists. Then came the flying monkeys, a term I learned from my therapist. If you're unfamiliar with the term, it's when toxic family members send others to guilt trip you to apply external pressure. Aunt Susan, whom I saw maybe once every 3 years at Christmas, called to inform me that family is everything, Alex. You can't just abandon us in our time of need. Uncle Bob, who I'm pretty sure still believes I'm 12, emailed me a lengthy, rambling, moralizing lecture on the importance of sharing your blessings and filial duty. Even my third cousin's wife's sister, a woman I'd never met in my life, somehow acquired my number and felt compelled to express her thoughts on family obligation and the spiritual dangers of excessive wealth. It was a coordinated, relentless assault. But the real show started when they showed up at my workplace. I arrived at my sleek, modern, glass-paneled office in downtown San Francisco on Monday morning to find Mom, Dad, and Mark sitting uninvited and unannounced in our spacious reception area. They had apparently told Lena, my head of operations and the first employee I ever hired, that they had an appointment for family wealth management services. Mark was clutching his cheap Michael Kors knockoff bag, which he frequently paraded as a designer accessory, as if it were genuinely worth something. The conversation that ensued went about as well as one would expect from a family intervention orchestrated by entitled narcissists who had no concept of personal boundaries or earned success. My mother, forcefully, her voice trembling with barely suppressed rage. We've discussed it as a family, Alex. We've come to an agreement, and we are very disappointed. Me, raising an eyebrow, crossing my arms. A family discussion without the family member you're discussing, Mom? How very convenient. My mother, ignoring me, plowing ahead, her eyes fixated on my office's luxurious decor. And we think it's only fair that you set up substantial trust funds for everyone. Mark needs at least $50 million to start his new life properly, to really get his firm off the ground. He's got so much potential. Mark, chiming in, with a smug, expectant look on his face, as if this was already settled. And Mom and Dad want to retire in style. We're thinking a multi-million-dollar beach house in Maui, with a substantial yearly stipend for living expenses, say, $1 million a year. Me, my voice dangerously calm, barely above a whisper but cutting through the tension. Did you miss the part where I've been sending you $10,000 monthly for the past 2 years? An amount you dismissed as nothing? Did you miss the part where I silently prevented you from losing your house? Mark, indignant, his face red with a mix of entitlement and self-pity. That's nothing compared to what you have. You owe us. We raised you. We sacrificed for you. Me, finally losing my patience, the years of quiet resentment and hurt exploding into a cold fury. I owe you for what exactly? For being ignored my entire life? For every award and achievement you missed because Mark might feel left out? For never saving a single penny for my college education, but funding his entire Wharton education and now his failed business venture? For constantly putting me down, dismissing my ambitions, and treating me like a charming but useless burden? No. I gave myself everything. I built this, every single bit, from scratch, with no help or support from any of you. And you know what? I'm done. Done with the lies, done with the charade, done with you. Get out of my office. Right there in my own office lobby, in front of my stunned receptionist and a few curious employees who were now pretending very hard to be engrossed in their work, I took out my phone and, with a few taps, canceled the monthly transfers to their account. My mom gasped, clutching her chest dramatically, as if I just physically assaulted her. Mark began his phony crying performance again, loud and theatrical, but quickly stopped when he saw it wasn't having any effect on me. Then things became truly ugly. They refused to leave. They started yelling, accusing me of being a heartless monster, an ungrateful child, and a disgrace to the family name. They threatened lawsuits, public exposure, and telling everyone what a terrible person I really was. I had no choice but to call building security. Seeing my 60-year-old mother being gently but firmly escorted out by 2 burly security guards while she yelled about ungrateful children and family betrayal was a truly bizarre, surreal, and deeply uncomfortable moment. Lena, my incredibly loyal receptionist, asked if I wanted to press charges for trespassing and harassment. I said no, for now, but I did have their names placed on the building's permanent do not admit list, with strict instructions that they were never to be allowed back on the premises. The harassment continued relentlessly for weeks. New telephone numbers, fake email addresses, even attempts to contact me through Aegis Guard's customer service line with outlandish requests for free cybersecurity audits for family businesses. They inundated my company's social media with negative comments, trying to damage my professional reputation. I finally had to issue a formal legal notice drafted by my corporate lawyers threatening serious harassment charges if they continued their campaign. My mom then played her final, desperate, and ultimately fruitless card. She called Aunt Carol, my mom's younger sister, who had always been a quiet supporter of mine, and the only one in the family who consistently treated me with genuine kindness and respect. She tearfully begged Aunt Carol to intervene and convince me to come to my senses. But here's the thing about Aunt Carol. She is wiser, stronger, and more principled than all of them put together. Her response to my mom's tearful plea for intervention was swift and unequivocal. Good for Alex. It's about time someone in this family learned to stand on their own 2 feet and face the consequences of their own choices. He owes you nothing. My mom did not speak with her for 3 months after that, effectively cutting off the only honest voice in her life. It has been exactly 6 months since that infamous Thanksgiving. My life has transformed in ways I could only have dreamed of. I relocated to a new, sprawling modern home in a more private, secluded area of Marin County, complete with top-tier security measures, a custom-built, hidden underground server vault, and a state-of-the-art home automation system. I changed all of my personal phone numbers and email addresses, creating an entirely new digital footprint. My company, Aegis Guard, is thriving more than ever. Ironically, the family drama, particularly Mark's social media rants, actually attracted several high-profile clients who admired my discretion and my firm stance on boundaries and integrity in the face of such public personal attacks. They saw it as a testament to my character and my commitment to security, even in my own life. Our revenue has increased by 30% in the last quarter, and we're planning a new international office in Dubai by the end of the year. Mark continues to write passive-aggressive, self-pitying updates on social media about toxic wealth and the importance of real integrity in business, occasionally dropping veiled hints about his new ethical venture that will change the world. According to what I've heard through Aunt Carol, who still occasionally exchanges terse texts with my mother, he is indeed trying to start his own ethical cybersecurity authentication firm. He's struggling to get funding and has alienated most of his former contacts. Good luck with that, Mark. The cybersecurity world is far more complex than a social media rant. Mom and Dad finally stopped trying to contact me after my corporate lawyer, a formidable woman named Miss Chen, wrote them an official stern letter outlining exactly how harassment charges and public defamation lawsuits would affect their lives, their finances, and their social standing. They're now informing everyone who will listen that they never wanted my money anyway, and that they're simply praying for my salvation. The wall of Mark's trophies in their living room has a few new additions, ironically, from various community awards Mark created for himself, complete with self-published certificates and flimsy plastic trophies he ordered online. But you know what the absolute best part is? For the first time in my entire life, I feel truly, completely liberated. No more agonizing Sunday dinners full of sly insults and backhanded compliments. No more desperately downplaying my accomplishments to spare their fragile feelings or their inflated egos. No longer secretly financing the Mark Show and their increasingly lavish, entitled lifestyle. My therapist believes I am finally establishing healthy limits and boundaries, that I am reclaiming my narrative. I say I am finally living authentically, on my own terms, free from their expectations, their judgment, and their constant, suffocating comparisons. The air I breathe now feels clean, fresh, and truly my own. So that is my story, Reddit. Thanks for allowing me to share it. It's been a long time coming, and a very special thanks to the catering firm that Thanksgiving. They sent me a Christmas letter stating that the Thanksgiving meal at my parents' house was the highlight of their year and a masterclass in controlled chaos. It's nice to know some people appreciate true artistry, even amidst the drama. Edit. Responses to common questions. Yes, I am still in treatment. It's a long journey of healing, but a necessary one, and my therapist has been invaluable. No, I do not regret cutting them off. It was the healthiest decision I've ever made for myself, and my mental peace has improved exponentially. Yes, Aunt Carol is doing great. She's coming to visit next month, and we're planning a trip to a vintage electronics fair, where she's agreed to help me catalog a new collection of rare analog synthesizers and audio equipment for my personal enjoyment, a hobby she actually understands and appreciates. One last thing to Mark. I know you're probably reading this from your new office. That prototype quantum encryption device you're wearing on your wrist in your most recent Instagram post, the one you claim is revolutionary, definitely a cheap, mass-produced fake you bought online. Just saying.